Hello, this is Mark. I work at one of the Apple retail store. I would ask my friends to make clips about the difference between the MacBook Airs 2010 and the new iPad 2. And the gentleman who sent the mails to me, he said, well, lots of people is trying to figure it out. Well, the thing is, it's not supposed to be difficult because the MacBook Air is truly a computer. We know that, okay? And also the iPad is a computer. Because you know what? I made a clips around 2 months ago about the iPads, and I've received lots of comments. They said, Mark, you are wrong. The iPad is a computer because it has a processor and it has its own operating system. I said, fine. Well, I don't want to make any controversy, so that's fine. So, well, the iPad is pretty much like an iPhone, okay? It has exactly the same OS, the one that we found on the iPhone, okay? And it's a big iPhone without the ability to make a phone call. So the iPad is an app-centric device. Like for instance, Apple's store provides up to 350,000 applications in the world. Any of those apps works on iPad, but they won't works for any of the MacBook Pros or iMac. So it's an app-centric device. Okay. Well, if we compare to the MacBook Air, the things that I like about the iPad is really great because today one of my clients came back from United States and he bought an iPad 2. He showed it to me. I've been playing around with it at the store. And he also bought the smart cover. So when you flip the smart covers up just a little bit, it turns on instantly. Okay, but when you close the smart cover, you will see some clicks noise like, well, it's shut down or something. It's like sleeps and wake. It's a clever idea. So firstly, the iPad doesn't require any boot up times compared to the MacBook Air. And even though you go for top of the line MacBook Air, the battery for the Air is roughly about 7 hours. But for the iPad, I have tested at the labs. Okay, for my companies, the company has a labs like they test several Apple products, and I found that the battery for the iPad lasts up to 11 hours on a single charge. Okay, surfing webs, watching movie series on it, and I think the interface of the iPad is much simpler to learn. And you know what? When you do iPad, it's truly a new experience. Okay, the iPad is not. It's really something that it's a new device. It's a new ball game, but it's not that difficult. Okay, I spent around a month, and I just bought a book here. It's called iPad, okay, and it's a very thick book. I've been reading this book for months. I just finished this book a couple of days ago, and I found that it's truly a new experience. But it was much simpler. Like for instance, if you want to buy a birthday present for your grandmother, okay, between MacBook Air or the iPad, I would suggest the iPad might be better because they have look like separated icons on the screens, and then you can just tap on these. You don't have to learn about the computers to learn about the Mac OS and stuff. Okay, it's a new experience, and so iPad is an app-centric device. Okay, for the overall performance, I don't have to explain and taking your time. Okay, because the MacBook Air is way faster and much better. Okay, so we use iPad to browse those 350,000 applications on the Mac App Store. So it's an app-centric device. Okay, if you want a device that allows you to just read books on the road, ebooks, or watch videos, okay, during your trips on the roads, or Want to check your mails through, via Wi-Fi connectivity or 3G SIM card whatsoever, iPad might be a great idea. What about the MacBook Air? Of course, MacBook Air is a computer. But the thing is, I have done some sort of experiments. I I stripped it down and I tried to cut the enclosure of the Air opens, and I found that the motherboard of the MacBook Air has a very small, tiny fans, like like a coins, like this size of coins, okay. And I think the MacBook Air is supposed to be some sort of a secondary computer. Like, okay, you have your own primary computer at home, and then on the road you need another one that lighter, because the Air, it doesn't have the Thunderbolt, it doesn't have the of course the DVD writer, okay, the super drive, and the processor is really slow, okay, starting at only 1.4 core to duo, okay. But compared to the iPad, it's faster because the iPad has only, for the new one, it has dual core processor, okay, A5 from, well, Samsung made it for Apple, but for the MacBook Air still use the Intel, okay, the Core 2 Duo, still faster. The iPad has 512 megabytes for RAMs, but for the Air it has 2 megabytes of RAM. You can increase up to 4. And also the hard drive, you can goes up to 256 for the Air, but for the iPad it allows to goes up to only 64 cores. And the iPad doesn't have a graphic card, but the Air has the NVIDIA. The MacBook Air has 2 USB ports. Also, the 13-inch gives you the SD card slots, mini display. Okay, but the MacBook Air doesn't have any of these. Of course, it's a computer. Okay, so so it's pretty much like you are now having to choose between buying a phone, a big iPhone that doesn't make a call, or you buy a computer. Okay, it's easy, it's not difficult. So it's depending on how do you plan on using your computer for. Okay, and like for instance, like Apple released the iWorks for iPads. Okay, they cost $10 each. Okay, you want to buy Keynotes, but you know that this stripped down version of Keynote is not as good as the one that we found running on the regular Macs. Okay, so one more time, iPad is an app-centric device. It's like a big iPhone without the phones, with larger screen. But for the MacBook Air, of course, it's a computer. Okay, so firstly, you have to ask yourself what kinds of device that you really want to get. So that's the things. And well, if you're kids, you know what? The things that I really blew me away was lots of my friends that I met on YouTube. They were kids. Some in high school, some in the just first year in college. And I just want to give you a simple, well, some sort of like a simple trick for friends. iPad is well, you want to buy the iPad as a gaming device. Well, in terms of value, it's a great device because those games that are available on the iPad app stores, on Apple Store, those are quite cheap compared to if you buy like a tangible package like any of these or whatsoever, because those games they don't require any package or DVD whatsoever, okay, but we have like sometimes we have limited selections, okay. So as I said earlier, that before you buy any gaming device, don't buy the device first and then search for the games, okay. You have to search for the games and then you buy the device in order to play those games. So Okay? You don't have to agree with me, but I have no bad intention to you. Okay? You please kind of see me as your friend, your brother. Okay? Thanks for taking the time to watch my clips.